Hi there, welcome to Tunisia. This is a middle-income nation in North Africa and has close links to the West. This country has a complex history of cultural influences. So here we are leaving London and the lushness of southeast England, and then a 3-hour flight staying in the same time zone, and as if by magic arriving on the North African coast in Tunisia in a warm Mediterranean climate. A good landing that, and a good round of applause for the captain. So I'm opting out of aqua aerobics to sit by the pool and watch some of the other people do aqua aerobics. You can hear the music in the background, so let's make some comments about Tunisia. Tunisia is the smallest country in North Africa. It's warm and sunny almost all of the time. The culture here is not exclusively Arabic. There is great French and Italian influence, which is evident through things like food and architecture. If you're a foodie, Tunisia is a good place to be. The country combines the best of Arabic cooking with a healthy influence from many years of French rule. There is fresh fish from the sea and a wide variety of fruit and vegetables. Tunisian wine is also surprisingly good. Given that this is a Muslim nation, Islamic law forbids the drinking of alcohol, but Tunisia has always been more liberal than many of its Arab neighbours, largely because there's a lot of tourists that come here, so a pragmatic approach to alcohol drinking is important. The beer that's brewed here in Tunisia is called Keltia. It's reasonably cheap and far more affordable than the more expensive imported brands. Tunisia's national drink is tea, but not as we know it. Mostly people here drink mint tea. It's very refreshing on a hot day, and if offered some, you should never refuse. It's considered discourteous. If you want British style tea, you need to ask for thé au lait. And it's worth noting that English is very much the third language spoken here, with Arabic and French being the first two, those being widely spoken by people in Tunisia. The national dish is couscous, which is a grain which is said to date back to the ancient Berbers and can reputedly be served in 300 different ways. Tunisians often eat their couscous with harissa and is usually served with lamb, veal or fish. Right, if someone in Tunisia invites you to chew on a brick, then take it. This is another Tunisian speciality. What we've got here is paper thin pastry that usually contains an egg and with some chopped parsley and often meat or fish. In this case it's got cheese. It's fried and eaten as a snack or an appetizer, or in my case, my lunch. Right, this is me eating my lunch, my Tunisian speciality brick. Very nice. B-R-I-K, brick. Beautiful. Buying, selling, and more particularly haggling is a way of life here. The buzz of the marketplace is a long way removed from being in Tesco's or Sainsbury's at home. Some people are better at haggling than others, and it's certainly an experience. Possibly fun, maybe a bit stressful. Most of the shops you'll find here are broadly similar to each other. There's lots of traditional goods like leathers, fabrics, nougat, ceramics and mosaics. These are then mixed in with products aimed at tourists like counterfeit fashion goods, watches and so on. There's also the staples of the mass tourism industry, perhaps fridge magnets, key rings and that sort of thing. Vendors are engaging but not aggressive. I've had a few goes at haggling with very limited success, it has to be said. My own tips are now, first of all, try and haggle in your own currency. You often get given the choice, in my experience. They say pounds or dinar, and I've been going dinar because I want to be impressive and I want to be able to do it, but actually making that conversion on the hoof is quite difficult in the heat of negotiation, has been my experience. £1 in October 2022 is about 3.7 Tunisian dinar, so making that conversion I'm struggling with slightly. Secondly, I would say, if you get a bundle of purchases, if you're convinced to put a pile of things together that you're going to buy, be clear, do a little breakdown, be clear on what it is you want to pay for those things before you start the negotiation. Otherwise, otherwise it becomes tricky. Tunisia has more than enough by way of cultural interest to satisfy anyone. Even if your aim is to spend most of your holiday lying in the sun, it shouldn't be forgotten that Tunisia is a Muslim country, where people have always dressed modestly, and where the sight of someone in a swimsuit is actually a very recent thing. Bikinis should be kept for the poolside, And although walking around in t-shirts and shorts is now much more acceptable than it was, this is a pretty new thing. If, however, you visit a mosque or a more rural location, then shorts and bare shoulders are very much a no-no. If your interest is in ancient history, then the country's got many archaeological sites which you're going to want to see. Many of these are not easily accessible from the coastal resorts, but don't pass up the chance to visit those that are nearby. Carthage is perhaps the most widely known. It's a must for many people's itinerary, and it's now a virtual suburb of Tunis. Also of interest are El Gem, which hosts a fabulous Roman Colosseum. There are also very well preserved Roman remains in Douga. To get a feel for the true history of Tunisia, you must make a trip to the desert. Seeing the way that the Berbers and other desert dwellers live is a revelation. Having indulged into the relative wealth of the mass tourist trappings of the coastal resorts, it's a big difference to go there. In 2015 there was a mass shooting just down the coast from here, about 30 kilometers south. Many people were killed. Most of the people that were killed were British, and that has really affected the tourism industry, the mass tourist industry here in Tunisia. COVID has also had its impact as well, of course, and it's meant that there's been underinvestment, and that can be seen in the town, Hammamet, where I am. It can be seen in the hotel. The longer term impact will perhaps become clear over the coming years as that underinvestment perhaps filters through to a lower quality service. But the numbers, certainly that are able to be easily accessed, suggest actually that tourist numbers are actually quite buoyant and have bounced back very well from these things, up to about 9 million tourists arriving internationally each year into Tunisia. So, as I'm sat here, we should reflect on the impact I'm having on Tunisia. Am I benefiting Tunisia by being here right now? I'm part of the mass tourism industry. I am not necessarily buying things off local people. I'm buying things from the hotel, eating in the hotel. We're half board, but most of our food comes from here. So, is there any benefit to the people of Tunisia? The idea of wealthy Europeans flocking into Tunisia brings a host of benefits. The local economy is injected with money, jobs are created, young people are less likely to leave for the bright lights of the cities, which brings demographic benefits. Not to mention the investments that follow the tourists. Tourist money can then be reinvested in social development and environmental protections. Infrastructure improvements are also inevitable, which the locals are going to benefit from. However, there is a downside to mass tourism. Profits leak out of Tunisia back to the transnational corporations, the big companies which are based in rich countries, in the HICs, in Europe, in Western Europe or in North America. Many of the jobs that are created here are also seasonal, and they're also quite badly paid. There could be also cultural clashes, especially when Westerners perhaps don't respect many of the local customs. And there's various forms of environmental degradation which are likely to happen. And in making air travel the norm for people from richer countries, this is going to, of course, bring its own environmental challenges. It won't be long in Tunisia before you first see a camel. They're very well adapted to the harsh life of the desert. They can go for many days without food or water. They have 3 eyelids and those long eyelashes that protect their eyes against the sand. They have wide pads of skin under their feet to enable them to walk on the sand without sinking in. Thanks very much for joining me. As I walk back to my hotel, just time for a couple more comments. So first of all, this ocean's got very low tidal range, so the sea comes in very little and goes out very little because it's a small ocean. This is also an artificial beach, the sand brought here from a nearby quarry, and there's lots of sea level rise issues here, and there's lots of erosion problems. Thanks very much, bye bye.